So, that's the setting for the day. So, starting off, I'm delighted to introduce ROZ Savage. It says here that ROZ Savage is our relatively new MP for the South Cotswold constituency, literally half a mile up. She has been an environmental campaigner for the last 20 years, which included becoming the first woman to row solo across 3 oceans, the Atlantic, Pacific and Indian, and using her voyages to raise awareness of our environmental crisis. So there's no doubting her commitment to the cause. Can I also add that she also is an MBE, a doctor, a Guinness World Record holder, and a friend. I'm sure her skills and experience will come in very useful in helping her navigate the storms and currents of Parliament. Roz.
Thank you, Tony. Oh, you're a little bit taller than I am. I hope you can all hear me all right. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. I feel quite a strong connection with the fantastic work going on here at Sustain Britain and Crappers. I've been familiar with their work for a while now and wholeheartedly support it. So it's just such a pleasure to be here with you today. So I feel like I'm wearing 2 hats today. One is of nearby MP, but maybe the hat that fits better for today is my 20 years as an environmental campaigner. My environmental journey began in 2003 when, having recently escaped from corporate life in London, I travelled to Peru, and it was there that for the first time I became aware of climate change. I was up in the Andes outside Cusco, and the local people were telling me that the glaciers up there in the Andes are getting smaller year on year. And it might astonish you now, but I had not got the memo in 2003 about this thing called climate change. But I think that's quite an interesting benchmark, that we have come so far in the last 2 decades in terms of our awareness and our understanding of what we are doing to this planet. And I spent much of that 20 years wondering how we can really effect positive change towards these goals that we know our future existence and well-being absolutely depend on. There have been some high moments on this journey, both personally and globally. As Tony mentioned, I spent 7 of those 20 years rowing alone across oceans, which is a little bit of an unusual way of campaigning. I just really want you to know it's not natural to me to do that kind of thing. I am not an adrenaline junkie. I don't particularly like exercise, and I'm quite scared of the ocean. So it was not my natural habitat. But after I'd had this environmental awakening, I desperately wanted to do something to get people's attention, to raise their awareness and hopefully inspire some action on what seemed to me literally the most important issues on the face of the planet. I learned a great deal during those 520 days and long nights that I spent alone at sea, and particularly about the relationship between humans and nature. There is nothing quite like being alone in a 23-foot rowboat in a storm to remind you who is really running this planet. And it's not the human beings. It is incredibly humbling to be so much at the mercy of the wind and the waves, the elements and the currents. I also noticed that the world felt surprisingly small. I was able to cross quite a significant proportion of it, about 15,000 miles, a little bit less than walking pace in a rowboat. And it actually amazes me that the Earth is still almost managing to sustain 8 billion of us with our increasingly consumerist lifestyles. The Earth really does not seem that big when you've travelled around it at snail's pace. And thirdly, my voyages really taught me the power of cumulative action. When I give my environmental talks, I often get people coming up to me afterwards saying, what can I do? I'm just one person, and these problems seem so massive and so intractable. Surely anything that I do is just a drop in the ocean, so to speak. And that is absolutely not true. I believe that everything that each of us does makes a difference. I wrote a whole doctorate on this, and in fact my latest book, and this is not a plug, this is actually relevant, although you are welcome to buy it at an independent bookstore near you. The book is actually called The Ocean in a Drop, from the Rumi quote that you are not just a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. And I just love that. It feels so empowering. And this is what I am hoping to continue to do from Westminster, is to empower companies and communities and individuals to believe that we have a real sense of agency in creating a better and brighter future for ourselves and for the generations to come. I've spent a lot of time also thinking about, where does this change come from? Is it top down from government? Is it bottom up from the grassroots? Or is it from the middle out? And I've come to the conclusion, it's all of the above. We all need to be doing whatever we can from wherever we are in whatever line of work we do. So wherever we are in that system, we are making a difference, yet some levers, some positions in that system are more powerful than others. And I do think that companies have a very special place in this. And this is one of the reasons that I am so delighted to be even only very peripherally involved with Sustain Britain. I think this is a really exciting concept, and I hope I'm not going to steal too much of Nick's thunder by talking briefly about the Sustain circles. I remember when Nick first described this to me, it just really resonated. When you draw a circle with a radius around a community, how do you resource as many of that community's needs within that circle? The need for housing, the need for jobs, the need for food, within that circle as you possibly can. There are so many benefits to this. Clearly, when food has been produced locally, it's got so many fewer food miles on it. When you don't have to travel as far to get to work, you're saving emissions, and especially as our rural public transport is definitely not everything that it could be. And when you've got housing close to where those jobs and where those markets are, it helps also to build that strong sense of community. It connects people to people, connects people to place, connects people to their communities. And I think that this is the future direction of travel. When I look back at I'm not going to get too political, but I feel like over the last however many years of austerity, we keep being told that there is no money. There's no money in government, meaning there is no money for local councils, meaning there's no money for public services. And we've probably all had our lives touched in some way by this sense of scarcity. But I think the silver lining in this cloud, and I realise this may not be much consolation to people struggling with the cost of living or facing potentially not being able to afford the heating this winter, I hope that the silver lining in this cloud, how do we make something out of nothing? And I think the way that we do that is by looking around to our neighbours, to our communities, and say, how can we share resources? How can we meet more of our needs within our community without needing money? How can we exchange value in different ways? How can we make a little go further by sharing and caring for our neighbours? And so I think the idea of Sustain Circles absolutely reinforces that. And I'm seeing really exciting ideas coming up elsewhere in the constituency. The Cirencester Pantry, that isn't a food bank, it's about reducing food waste. People subscribe and then they come and collect food that would otherwise have been discarded by supermarkets. I see things like Heels of Malmesbury, where they're starting to experiment with time banking so that people can trade favours in a moderated way through a technological platform. How can we take these really fantastic ideas and replicate them, adopt and adapt them elsewhere, within the constituency and then out into Gloucestershire and out into Wiltshire. I'm seeing committed, dedicated, smart people bringing these ideas to fruition. And I will be doing whatever I can from Westminster to encourage that, to nurture that, and to help remove the obstacles. So I'm feeling really excited about the future. I am a glass half full kind of a person, because really, what's the alternative? We can't just curl up and hope it all goes away. And when we find that sense of agency, something that we can do to make a difference, it is so empowering, and especially when we connect with kindred spirits who share that vision of how we can collaborate, how we can connect to create a brighter future. So thank you so much to the amazing team here for all of the work that they're doing. I will be cheering you on, not just from the sidelines, but from Westminster. And I hope this is going to be an ongoing conversation as you keep me informed on your progress and what I can do to help encourage, to nurture and to remove the obstacles that stand in your way. So thank you once again for inviting me. It's great to see you all here. Thank you. Questions, or do I need to hand over? Oh, great. Nobody ever complained that a speech was too short. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask me? Great, okay, well done. Yes.
So what do you think you can practically do with the incoming government to kind of shift the dial? And by you, I'm not only meaning you personally and trying to load your shoulders with everything, but within the new Parliament there's a lot of new MPs, there's a very different spread of people within Parliament. How can we really kind of change the dial, move things on? What do you think are the key levers that we can use?
Great question. So if, in case anybody didn't hear, the question was about how can we as the public work with government to get them to use their power in the ways that we would like to see. I paraphrased quite wildly there, I hope you don't mind. I hope that captured the spirit of the question. There is a real mood of change in Westminster. Out of the 650 MPs, 335 of us are new. And there are some encouraging noises being made. I will say it's a bit mixed. Speaking from personal experience, MPs are susceptible to public influence, definitely. We care about what people think of the job that we're doing, and I hope that most of us want to get re-elected because we know that the work that we were put there to do is not going to happen within 5 years, that this is going to be a marathon and not a sprint. So I might be making a rod for my own back here, but do write to your MP and do let them know what is important to you and how they can help you to further the projects that you want to see. And what I'm trying to do from my position as an MP is not to, again, want to be a bit careful not to sound critical of any predecessors here. I don't think that I hold all the solutions. I don't think any single person does. We live in a time of complex and interconnected issues, what are called wicked problems, that even as you're trying to solve the problems, they evolve and change, and sometimes the attempted solutions can have unintended consequences that even potentially make the problems worse. So all of that to say that I'm a collaborator. I think it's really important in my role to be as much of a convener as a talker. That when we bring together people who have a shared vision of where we're trying to get to, but maybe have different views about how to get there, how do we have a positive, constructive conversation to arrive at ways forward that deliver the greatest good to the greatest number over the longest period of time? So that's what I see my role as a facilitator rather than as some all-powerful messiah that is just going to wave a wand and solve everybody's problems. So please be, those of you who do live in the South Cotswolds, please be open to that and be willing to work with me as we really enter these, sorry, I'm going to have to say this again, uncharted waters. Sorry, it's an awful lot of maritime puns and metaphors. These are going to be challenging times to navigate, but hopefully we can work together as a crew to find the best course forwards. Sorry, just can't help myself. Who's got the next question? Oh, let's start here, and then you, and then you. Yes.
You speak of solutions, of course, and I think most of us in the room here would agree that the solutions that the government have come up with over decades just haven't worked well enough. Given what we're all doing here today, listening to you and to the other speakers about this fantastic, inspiring development, is there an argument for pooling together individuals within different communities to actually debate a way forward?
Absolutely. Did everybody hear the question? Great. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because clearly great minds think alike. I would very much like to form nodes or groups within communities around the constituency to talk about these issues. Some of them, in my mind, but this is all open for discussion, would be geographically based in a particular location, and then some would be sector based, so maybe a group of farmers, a group of educators, a group of healthcare professionals, a group of business people, a group of retailers, and so on, to take what's working and see how we can replicate that around the constituency, to share ideas. And I hope that some of you have been in these sorts of conversations where suddenly the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts, where a new idea emerges that no one person in that group would have thought of by themselves. So I am looking for willing volunteers to help me establish these groups around the constituency.
Got it.
Can we talk later?
Yes.
That would be great, thank you. The lady with the amazing purple hair.
I was just wondering whether you decided what you're going to do for your private members bill.
Oh gosh, the private members bill, yes. For anybody in the room who isn't aware of this, there is what actually strikes me as quite a bizarre way of empowering individual MPs to offer a bill to the House of Commons. It's basically a tombola. And if your number gets, I'm not kidding, there's a big Harry Potter kind of book, and you choose a number and put your name next to it, and if your number gets drawn, then you are granted a private member's bill. And I was fortunate enough to get drawn third, which is amazing, which means that I'm pretty much guaranteed at least one full day of debate on whatever I decide to offer as my private member's bill. So this happened 8 days ago, since when I've become extremely popular. It's amazing. I've never had so many friends, and I would like to think it was my charm and charisma that attracts them to me, but I know it's my third place in the ballot. So, given that I have been an environmental campaigner for the last 20 years, my mind immediately went to environmental issues. One possible route was sewage and flooding, which adversely affect a lot of our communities and farmland in the South Cotswolds. I will say the Climate and Nature Bill has come up more often than anything else, and I had a very constructive meeting with the team from 0 Hour, and they have presented an extremely compelling case. I am giving myself until next Tuesday, which is the end of the Lib Dem conference, to arrive at a decision, but I will, as I feel like I'm amongst friends here, I will drop a hint as to where my thoughts are at the moment, and say that if the Climate and Nature team are half as enthusiastic and motivated and powerful in lobbying all of the rest of the MPs to support the Climate and Nature Bill as they have been in lobbying me, then it has got a really good chance of success. I think it's a strong bill, and I trust that its time has come. I might have said a bit more than I intended to then. And then there was a gentleman at the back.
Well, I'm with Wiltshire Climate Alliance, and one of the things that we're trying to do is pursue our local council, Wiltshire Council, on their building and all the rest of the things they're doing, because we pushed them to get this, that we're in an emergency, climate emergency, several years ago. They haven't done anything, but I'd like to push you to ask for your other MP to get behind the right to repair, because I'm one of these people who collected an awful lot of kit over the years, computer kit in fact, and when you go to the tip, there's an awful lot of stuff in there that's reusable, and I think we ought to have places where we can keep this stuff, that other people who aren't so well off should be able to get hold of it. You know, it's ridiculous. People are throwing stuff away that they don't want or don't need, and it's brand new.
It's heartbreaking.
No, it is. Well, being an ex-computer engineer and seeing the stuff that's going in is gobsmacking. I was there, well, a few months ago, and the guy said, well, his daughter's gone to college, she don't want the kit, and he threw it in, and it's all working. And other people, I've repaired TVs, because I don't know, as you all more than likely know, these flat screen TVs, they're not very hard to fix at all.
Yeah.
So I've repaired a few.
Great point. Thank
so I'd
you.
like you to see that the other MPs vote and help to get right to repair, because it's going through Parliament in the EU, and we've done a little bit, but we're not doing anything much at all in this country. And a lot of you have got Apple iPhones and the rest of them, and you can't repair them unless you take them to Mr. Apple. And now the link is, with all these phones, is they've got parts in them that talk to each other. And if you don't repair both of them, you had it.
Very well said indeed. Thank you. I will absolutely do that. Yes, it drives me as crazy as it. Sorry, I'm not saying you're crazy. Let me try that again. It drives me crazy. Yes, I think we all care very much about having to throw things out, built-in obsolescence, designed irreparability, and it makes perfect sense in a world of scarce resources that we find ways to repair things. And I think the fact that Tony's standing up means I'm probably out of time. So thank you for the fantastic questions. I'm afraid I can't stay for the whole day today, but I am very contactable, and if you've got anything that you want to share with me, then do please email me, is the best way to get in touch. And I look forward to continuing this conversation about how we get together to build a brighter future. Thank you very much.